Powell well. He was Powell's boss for 8 years. Carlyle Group co-founder and co-chairman David Rubenstein is here. This is an interesting question, and I'd love for you to explain to our viewers what connection there is. Why, when the president insults Jay Powell, does the dollar weaken?
Well, I can't tell how the market really operates all the time, but I would say generally the markets want an independence of the Fed. The Fed independence, since the Fed was created in 1917 or so, has been a very important bulwark of our economic system. So to the extent that the Fed is not seen as independent, it hurts the dollar, and therefore probably the dollar goes down. Now, other presidents have tried to jawbone down the dollar, or jawbone down, I should say, interest rates. President Nixon did with Arthur Burns, and other presidents did as well. I think Lyndon Johnson did as well. So it's not the first time a president has said, I'd like the interest rates to go lower. And as William McChesney Martin, a former chair of the Fed, once said, the job of the chairman of the Fed is to take the punch bowl away at the party. When everybody wants to drink the punch bowl, it's his job to take it away, or her job to take it away.
There is a big difference, I think, between, boy, I'd really like to see rates come down, and the insults that the president has hurled at Jay Powell. In fact, we put up a list, and this is just over the past couple of months. He's called him average mentally person, very dumb, hard-headed person, Mr. Too Late, Powell is the worst, a real dummy who's costing America billions, a major loser, numbskull, and we will be paying for his incompetence for many years. At issue is Powell's decision not to cut interest rates at this past meeting or the past couple of meetings. He's waiting to see what the tariffs effects are because he feels that he doesn't yet know. President Trump obviously wants those rates cut. In fact, he says they should be something like 200 basis points lower. Where do you think rates should be?
Well, nobody knows exactly where they should be.
I'm asking you where you kind of think they should be.
I don't have all the economic data that the Fed has. The Fed is very driven by data, and they don't try to be driven by political forces. So Jay Powell and the other directors, remember, he doesn't make the decisions himself.
Right.
There's an FOMC that makes a decision with Jay Powell leading it, but he doesn't make those decisions. If everybody wanted to cut interest rates and he didn't, presumably they would cut interest rates. So it's many people involved in it, and they do look at the data. I would say right now, Jay Powell, I think, is an intelligent person. He was a graduate of Princeton. He went to Georgetown Law School, was editor-in-chief, which means near the top of his class at Georgetown Law School, practiced at a very good law firm for a while, then went to Dillon Reed, then went into the administration under George Herbert Walker Bush, and I hired him when he left the George Herbert Walker Bush administration. I think most people would say that Jay has done a pretty good job as Fed chair because we haven't had any recessions since he's been Fed chair. Now, remember, he became Fed chair when we had COVID, and inflation went very, very high. It wasn't his fault that inflation went very high. We put in $5 trillion into the economy, which was not dealt with corresponding tax increases, and the result was we did have inflation, much higher than anybody wanted, about 8 or 9% at one point. So he began a series of of rate increases that leveled inflation down, not to where they wanted. They would like to go to 2%. It's a little above 2% now, but I think he's done a reasonably good job with everybody else on the Fed trying to fight inflation.
Can we just remind our viewers of one thing, because there are a lot of viewers that are new to business news. We welcome everybody. President Trump appointed Jay Powell to the Federal Reserve. So he's the one who picked Jay Powell. Now he doesn't like what the guy he put in place is doing. As we look at that and we look at this group of 5 or so that are possible replacements for Jay Powell, I think people want to know whether, no matter who gets chosen here, and by the way, Kevin Warsh is supposedly hawkish on rates. He's not so sure, apparently, that he would like to see rates cut. Does the president's behavior toward Jay Powell essentially force the hand of the next Fed chair to cut rates regardless?
Well, I think that the Fed chair has to be independent, and to get confirmed, I think the Fed chair is going to have to show independence. So if the Fed chair goes in front of Congress and says, whatever President Trump wants, I'm going to do, probably wouldn't be easily confirmed. Remember, the Republicans only own a majority, about 3 votes in the Senate, and so they really need to make sure they have somebody that all the Republicans will agree on. And if somebody says, I'll do whatever the president wants, I think that would be unusual. So every president wants a Fed chair to do what he wants, but you can't always get that. And so I suspect that Fed chairs are going to be criticized from time to time, and that happens. To Jay Powell's credit, he's done something I wouldn't be able to do, which is to resist any temptation to respond.
That's why we said one-sided war of words.
Because, if President Trump were criticized the way that he's criticizing Jay Powell, I think President Trump would probably respond. I can't speak for President Trump, obviously, but most people, when criticized in public, probably respond. And Jay Powell has not responded once to anything that's been said negative about him. So I admire his restraint.
As my mom used to say, rise above it. At the moment, he's focused on his job, and what he has insisted, Jay Powell meaning, is that he's waiting to see the effects of tariffs once the tariffs are confirmed. And the thing is, here's why I see Jay Powell's point. We don't have a single tariff deal with any country. We're close on apparently some, but it was months ago, back in April, when Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, said this, and then I'll let you respond.
We have every country in the world, just like Donald Trump has said, who wants to do a deal with us. Now, here's the point. I have a deal. Done. But I need to wait for their prime minister and their parliament to give its approval.
Okay. So far, there is no done deal.
Trade deals typically are about 200 or 300 pages in length.
It take 12 months or 18
It takes a long time. Typically, it takes a year and a half to get a trade deal done, and they're very, very extensive and very, very detailed.
But Trump is different. He says, I'm on Trump time. Let's get this done. Could you slice off a couple of months from that?
Well, I'm sure they could probably do something shorter than they normally do. But normally, when you look at a trade deal, they're usually about 200 to 300 pages in length and takes about a year and a half to get them done. So I don't know, maybe they can shortcut it, but it's very difficult to do that. There's no doubt that many people believe, including the business community and many people in the Trump administration, though I can't speak for them, believe that there is some inflationary impact to tariffs. Because I think the president himself has said that we're probably going to have some costs associated with tariffs. It's going to cost something and probably will be somewhat inflationary. I haven't heard of anybody that said tariffs are not going to have some inflationary impact. So Jay Powell is simply saying, tell us what the tariffs are, and then we'll tell you what the impact is likely to be, and then we can make a judgment. And it's a reasonable decision.
You got a grade for Jay Powell so far in the aggregate of all that he's done? And as you say, not one recession since he has been in the chair.
I think it's difficult to judge somebody while they're still in office, so I'll wait till he's out of office and he finishes the remainder of his term. His term is up in May of 26, and he has said to me when I've interviewed him that he wants to stay until the end, intends to stay until the end. But, I don't know if the President of the United States will appoint somebody sooner, and then there'll be a confirmation, and then it'll be a complicated situation. You might have an acting Fed chair.
And then the shadow Fed chair.
Right, so it's just hard to say what will happen. But it's unusual, and the markets are probably not responding that well to it. But I think this time, this will pass, and I suspect in the end the Fed chairman will stay until May of 26. That'd be my guess.
David Rubenstein, great to have you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Good to see you.